Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Military Mutterings, where I, Jack Fletcher, and my good friend
Me, Kevin Janssen.
shall be discussing a little submersible treat. Kevin,
Little?
if you will.
You call these little?
Well,
We're going to talk about the I-400, the biggest submarine built during World War II. And actually the biggest submarine until we got to like the nuclear-powered submarines of the navies afterwards. But yeah, the I-400, so pretty much to sum it up shortly, it's a submarine that can carry aircraft inside of its hangar bay. As you can see on the photo in front of you, if you look below the bridge, below the little I-401 number, you will see a big sort of round structure with a door that is open at the front. This is actually a pressurized hangar bay for 3 aircraft. And I guess we'll cover the aircraft in a bit. But the idea behind these super submarines, if we want to call it that, was that they had enough range to go basically anywhere on the entire world. And with these 3 planes, they could hit strategic targets. So America had the number advantage during the war. They were really stomping on the Japanese. So the Japanese had these super submarines, and they thought they could hit sort of like fuel facilities near the coast of American coastlines. So imagine the original plan was to make 18 of these carriers, and if we had all 18 of these working in one fleet, or maybe 9 in 2 fleets, you can actually hit a lot of targets, because 3 planes per carrier. Yeah.
and each plane was capable of an 800 kilogram bomb.
Yeah, like an 800 kilogram bomb. They could also carry torpedoes if you wanted to hit some naval targets. You could probably redo a Pearl Harbor, an entire surprise attack with a whole air force of these little bombers. So the idea was there. But as usual with these projects, they were too late. But I guess we'll get to the fate of the eventual ships in the end. Let's first get to the plane, actually, and I guess the hangar bay. So,
The aircraft, I believe, were the M6A series, and as
yes.
I said, they could carry up to an 800 kilogram bomb, as well as torpedoes.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this hangar bay for the plane was very small, because if you made it any bigger, it would become really annoying to make these submarines actually be able to submerge. So the wings and even the elevator and even the tip of the rudder was able to fold down to make this plane really small and actually fit in there. And the floats were completely disassembled. So when they were ready to be launched, they would roll out of the hangar. The floats were stored underneath little storages just outside, below the deck. So they would be brought up, mounted to it, and then launched. And then the second one came, everything extended, floats again, launch. So the idea was to get these ones out there very quickly. It even came to the point that they would prepare the engines with already warmed up oil to make sure that the engines would be working at optimum RPMs that you'd be able to turn on right away. But in reality, it proved that the crews were not really capable of getting the planes in the air as fast as they wanted to. I believe they were aiming around the 10 minutes for each plane, but in real life it was more towards 15 to 20. I'm doing this out of the top of my head these times, so I might be wrong there, but all the ideas were here for these ships, but it's just, it didn't quite work out in the end, which is a real shame. Also, something I should have probably mentioned in the beginning, in the previous slide, the design of this carrier actually was a twin hull. So you have 2 pressurized, what we want to say, quarters, sort of stuck together. So it was a very wide submarine. That was mainly because to keep the submarine stable, because his hangar was very big and very heavy. So if you just had a single, just a conventional submarine of World War II submarine design, it would topple over because the hangar was way too big. I think that's pretty cool as well. This submarine incorporates a lot of very interesting features actually. And then we got the gun. Do you want to do something about the weaponry, Jack?
Well, the armament of this could be seen on some light cruisers their time. Although which ones I do forget. I believe
I believe they were the Kuma class, and
yes.
was it Sendai class as well? Something along those lines?
I believe the Sendai either had 140 or
Yeah, but they're older-ish guns. They were also used on the Issei class battlecruisers actually, but then in casemate mounts.
I see. So these were already tried and tested.
Yeah.
Used for bombardment, sure. As well as for defense against, well, defense against lighter targets like destroyers that were encroaching on their position if they were not submerged.
Yeah, I think a lot of deck guns on most of the submarines, unless we're talking specifically cruiser submarines, but most regular submarines usually had one deck gun for taking out something like an enemy submarine. So if you've won a battle against an enemy submarine, most of them would surface because they couldn't really fight on anymore, and to make sure the submarine actually sunk, they would later shoot it with this gun and make sure it actually went down. Although I will hope that they would have at least given the crew of the enemy ship a chance to get into some sort of a live raft, but the gun is not really that useful on a submarine, unless you're really just fighting on the side. But again, the whole surprise attack side of things with the I-400 class, this gun will actually come in quite handy, because I believe in real life one I-400 actually did shoot its gun at a fuel storage. I believe the people working there came to work in the morning and saw a hole in the side of the fuel storage, but I don't think it was fully confirmed. But it's an interesting idea, especially if you have, again, that really big fleet of all these submarines. They would really be able to discharge quite a lot of damage with all 18 of these. Well, further weaponry, I guess we should also mention that it's got 8 forward-mounted torpedo tubes. And it's interesting, it does not have any torpedo tubes at the rear. Usually submarines have torpedoes in the front and the rear, but this one only has them in the front, and all 8 of them too. That's an interesting setup. I don't really know the exact reason why they did this. And 4 air attacks, because of course when you're above the sea, launching your aircraft or retrieving your aircraft, you would also have to have some anti-aircraft guns. So it had 3 triple 25mm guns and 1 single 25mm gun. The 25s, they were not really that good. Well, they were very bad during World War II, I'll be honest, but it's what the Japanese had, and having 3 triples, that is still quite nice actually. Then we have the I-402. So I should have probably mentioned this in the beginning. 3 of these were completed. I-400, I-401, and I-402. I-402, however, did not carry planes. Instead, she was converted to a fuel tanker. So I take it they probably just refitted the hangar deck with a big fuel storage. And I think that's a really good idea, actually. Late in the war, you're running out of resources, you're being stalked by American ships and planes everywhere. Converting your giant submarines to carry fuel to very strategic areas, that's actually very smart. I really like that idea. But yeah, no planes here, and guns-wise, I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same. But yeah, I think that is honestly about it for the I-400. I must say, I absolutely love these submarines. They're one of my favorite submarines.
Yes, a rather intriguing large.
Little. Yeah, I think it's interesting that the design of the twin hull design of the I-400s has been sort of copied into the more modern large submarines. It had so many interesting and cool ideas, but it's just too late in the war. It could not prove itself, sadly.
Well, do you have any other things you'd like to add before we wrap up this episode?
Well, we're not sponsored in any way, but if you want to know more about these ships, I highly recommend Mustard video on the I-400. It's a really good video. Well, it'll be linked in the sources of the description of this video.
Yes, wonderful. And with that, we will see you next week, where we shall be discussing, well, I'll tell you all the nation, a little French aircraft that
that one
will have an intriguing little video on.
I think another one that could not really make a name for itself, but it was very good.
Yes, well, until then, goodbye.
Have a nice day.